advantage. I guess you could push, but generally you're going to be doing a lot of creeping tier 1 and tier 2 because, I mean, well, not necessarily tier 2, but you know what I mean. You're going to be doing a buttload of creeping just so that you can kind of gain an advantage. You know, because you aren't really going to get much done by harassment. Like, oh no, one of their burrows is weaker, and I've lost an archer. Really, that's pretty much the most you can do. Maybe, you know, pull off a peon kill. Depends how much worse your opponent is, really. So, as an orc player, generally the best thing to do is to do the constant harassment that Grubby is doing with his Blade Master. The one thing that you do have to worry about is that, you know, the Talon Master training. So, you know, when they do get the Master training, the Blade Master harassment should kind of stop, and all you will do with your Blade Master harassment is kind of windwalk around and, you know, maybe take a couple swipes at their base. Maybe try and take out a wisp. Just those kinds of things. You don't want to do any kind of army harassment like he was doing earlier against the archers, because you'll get cycloned, mana burned, and then you won't be able to windwalk away. So you kind of want to stay in the safe zone as the orc. So as the Night Elf player, since he does have the Master training almost researched, start pushing, because you're not going to be forced to run away that quickly. There is just no way, especially when you've picked up your Tinker. And Tinker is probably one of the greatest counters to Raiders because of the pocket factories. And Pocket Rocket is just so good. Or Pocket Factory. I call them Pocket Rockets, but I guess that's the regular rockets, which are kind of crappy. So yeah, generally as a Night Elf player, you kind of want to push ASAP when you get your Cyclone, just because they won't have, you know, enough Dispel to be able to deal with you. So, you know, the more Dispel they get, the easier it is for them to, you know, get rid of your talents one by one. So right now he's kind of got bad positioning. Remind does. He's got a couple archers out front. He's kind of lost them, but since Grubby's repositioning, he's lost his little advantage there. So, a nice little Demon Hunter maneuvering. What you really want to do is don't stray too far from the Pocket Factory, and that's one thing that orcs will do, is try and drag you outside of the Pocket Factory. So what you do is you try and use the Cyclone to keep them as close to there as possible, because they don't want to lose like 1 or 2 units by doing that. So he forces a nice TP, and unfortunately he doesn't TP out, but I guess, you know, he had other things in mind. Not sure why he lost his Demon Hunter. That still confused me. So, you know, I guess Grubby took the more expensive option, which is to waste a TP as opposed to rebuilding his hero. But hero levels are so important for Orc that, you know, even losing that kind of advantage is a biatch, because then you waste all this time, you know, letting them build up more army. Well, you have to rebuild your Blade Master, and you can't even put any pressure because your Blade Master is most of your damage output. So Grubby decided to do something weird, which is he brought all his peons with him, even the ones on gold. Don't do that. How you should know. But yeah, generally as Orc, you kind of want to keep the pressure on as early as possible, because by the time they hit 50 food of talons, it's over. Because then they spend the rest of their time, you know, buying items, and you really don't want them to keep buying items, because all they're really going to buy is counters to your Tauren Chieftain and counters to your Raiders, which is invulnerability potions and healing scrolls. And yes, I did get the order out of whack. But, you know, generally people will go with the healing potions first, or not the healing scrolls first, because Tauren Chieftain does more damage to your army. And since you have the staff on hand, you can always save your heroes in some manner. So the Demon Hunter comes back out, and this is at the point where Grubby decides to push. As I said, it's best to push ASAP before they start buying more and more items just to screw you over as an Orc player. As an Idle player, just stick to 50 food and buy a buttload of items. That's probably your best option, because all you really have to do is, you know, buy a whole bunch of heal scrolls. You can end up getting like 3 or 4, some staff, some healing potions, and some invulnerability potions. You won't ever lose your heroes, and your army will like never die. The only time you would go into like low upkeep is if you have like an expansion. Generally, you won't ever have to do that if you don't have an expansion, because you'll be putting pressure on the Orc player. Reason being, you might as well. If you're only spending money on items, might as well put some pressure on and make them spend money on units as well. So, interesting kind of choice here to put his fairy dragons up front. He does use a nice little mana flare. Mana flare is always a good thing to use because it deals damage to the the spirit walkers. Makes them unable to spirit link also, because generally people like to spam spirit link and you end up doing buttloads of damage to them with your little mana flare. It does like a mana burn, except they get the effects out of it. So Grubby's kind of a disadvantage here. He's got a smaller army and he's forced to TP. Actually, he's got the same sized army. How does that work? Oh, he's macroing right now. Yeah, one thing to consider is generally when you're watching a replay and you're like, OMG, they have equal sized armies. Good thing to look at is, whether they're producing units or not, because if Orc is producing units at the same time as the battle's going on, their army is actually smaller than it appears to be in the numbers, because, most of their units are huge. So as a Night Elf player, all you really have to worry about, is losing your heroes enough to let them get a level 5 Tauren Chieftain. Generally, level 5 Tauren Chieftain just means GG. So kind of interesting Pocket Factory placement. He's kind of trapped his hero, which is weird, but I guess if you have a staff on one of your heroes and you have a whole bunch of healing scrolls, you're not going to lose much in terms of heroes anyways. So nice little pass of the invulnerability potion. That's always a good thing to have on you, just because Ensnare, Focus Fire, I mean, if you have a healing potion, you're still going to lose a whole bunch of crap anyways, because, it's not invulnerable. They can still ensnare you and focus you down, and you still won't be able to staff out. Which is one thing to remember with the invulnerability potion. You can still be staffed out while you're invulnerable. By the way, nice surround. That's one reason why I actually carry mana potions on both my heroes as the Orc player, just so I can actually get my my Blade Master out of there. Also, I always carry a TP. If I don't, get... Jesus, I just lost train of thought. Yeah, okay, with the Blade Master, don't carry a mana potion, carry a TP. It's a lot cheaper. That's what I was going with there. I wasn't really thinking that through. So, as an Orc player, you really don't want them creeping up their summon heroes, because level 2 Quill Beast is just a biatch. It can really do some damage to your Spirit Walkers, and that pretty much means like so much more tanking damage, and it makes it so much harder just to get back to the Druids at the Talons. So, it's always a danger zone when their Talons start pumping out. So here comes Grubby with his peons. It's always a good idea to fight with your peons, just because they take so much more damage for you with the Spirit Link. So Remind's kind of got bad positioning because of some nice ensnare action. Generally, 1 or 2 Talons out of position won't do that much damage to you. But what he's kind of done right now is gotten Grubby's heroes in trouble, which is he's killed both of them. But that's one thing that can happen if you're a little reckless and aggressive with your heroes, is they can get ganked on either side. So no matter what, you really have to be careful with your heroes, and I guess your units, because Grubby's losing a raider here. So, one technique that you will have to learn is how to cyclone and surround. Generally, you have like a minute to surround it anyways, so it's not that hard to do. You just kind of do the normal surrounding thing, except you have to position the units more manually. So, interesting use of Ensnare. I don't think it really made much of a difference. A reason he's staffing back his Beastmaster so that he can get the Clarity Potion. And I guess the staff just means more summons. So, pretty much not much else to commentate on. As an Orc player, I generally head up to tier 3 because I figure if they're attacking high